Work management platforms. Ugh, endless onboarding, IT bottlenecks, admin requests. But what if things were different?
We found love in an open space.
Monday.com is different. No lengthy onboarding. Beautiful reports in minutes. Custom workflows you can build on your own. Easy to use prompt-free AI. Turns out you can love a work management platform. Monday.com, the first work platform you'll love to use.
When was the last time you needed to go to a doctor, but you pushed it off? Made the excuse that you can't find your insurance card, or you'd rather spend the time trying a new Pilates class, or getting a manicure, or thought health advice from social media was good enough. I think we've all been there. Booking a doctor appointment can feel just so daunting. But thanks to ZocDoc, there's no reason to delay. They make it so easy to find and book a doctor who's right for you. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality, in-network doctors and click to instantly book your appointment. You can filter for doctors who take your insurance, are located nearby, and are a good fit for any medical need you may have. And with hundreds of verified patient reviews, you can find the type of care and support you're looking for. From good bedside manner to fast wait times to doctors with the best listening skills. Stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/female to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/female. ZocDoc.com/female.
All right, so we're back with Ken and Mike on My Uncle's Escaped Alcatraz, and we got some interesting information that has come across our desk via the internet that Mike encountered and found, and it's a new photograph, and it's really kind of exciting. It's an exciting photograph, and then when Mike handed it, he forwarded it to Cindy and I, we were kind of floored. We were floored on what it was and how it looked and it's a photograph that someone, and I'll let Mike get into the details, but just the headline is it's a photograph of John Anglin that and later on that was apparently taken in Brazil, that was found on the internet. Mike, tell us, and it's not even the resemblance. It looks exactly like an aged version of John Anglin. So, Mike, give us the backstory on how this photograph came to you and who reached out to you, because it actually came from one of our listeners.
Yeah, as you can imagine, over the months as we do the podcast, people will reach out to us with information about John and Clarence, the escape, Brazil, other aspects, and you start digging into it. And it starts to fall apart at some point where it's just not credible, or the connection is very weak. And so you have to sort of go in with sort of a critical eye that just because they say it's so doesn't make it so. Ken has shared the story about that woman who lives up in, Oregon or Washington, that said that her neighbors were the escapees, and she sent pictures, and it's like, it wasn't even close. It's like, there's no way these guys are that. And, it doesn't mean that she was lying. She just could have sincerely believed it. But it's, when you start looking at it with a critical eye, it doesn't hold up. So one of the listeners on our Facebook page sent me a message saying, "Hey, have you checked my message? Or do you check your messages?" That's what he asked me. And I said, "Well, yes, of course, we always check our messages." And he says, "Well, there's this guy that claims to have a photograph of John Anglin, and he identifies him as John Anglin. Have you seen it?" It's like, "No, I haven't seen it." And so I said, "Can you send me the links? Can you send me the information that you've seen?" And so he did. He sent me the link of this gentleman who lives in Brazil, in the Sao Paulo area, which is a major 20 million people city in Brazil, very large. And he lives supposedly in this area of Brazil. And since 2016, 2017, he's been trying to make contact with Ken's family, the Anglin family. And he tried to reach out to Ken's brother, David, but for whatever reason, couldn't connect with him with this information that he wanted to relay to the family, that he had a photo of John. And when I saw the photo, and not only did he provide the photo, but he has a comparison photo of John, a known photo of John, one of his mug shots. And like you said, I as soon as I saw it, I thought, okay, this one is different. This is not a weak claim that somebody is making. The photo looks very much like John. It's even the same facial expression, which is kind of eerie. But it's the nice thing about the photo is that it's an older version of John. It looks like he's in his 40s or possibly 50s.
Oh yeah.
You know, which would obviously be clearly after the Alcatraz escape. I mean, it's you can see the how this person has aged, but when you start looking at the different features on the face to kind of make a comparison, you know, the eyes, the nose, the chin, the mouth, the hairline, the bone structure, things like that. And, we're amateurs. I'm not claiming to be an expert, but you can look at certain markers. Do these hold up when you compare the photos? And it seems that they do. It seems that everything about it, from my unofficial view, is that looks like John, and he's claiming that it's John, and that he has some kind of a connection to him. We don't know. We just got this yesterday, as a matter of fact. So the information is preliminary, but right now it's looking very promising. And so we're trying to track down this gentleman in Brazil to find out how he knows John and his desire to reach the family. So that makes it more credible that he's been trying to connect with the family to say, I have information about John and here's my proof, just like Fred Breezy did. Fred Breezy made many claims about the escape, but he provided the proof with obviously the now famous photograph of John and Clarence in Brazil, and then the details that he related in his encounter with Ken's family that match up with other eyewitnesses and other documents that we have that show that what he was saying was credible. So this is, like you said, this is an exciting development.
Yeah, no, what I think is really interesting about this photograph, and obviously we're throwing the photograph up as we're talking about this to really kind of everyone to see it, just with the naked eye. I mean, if you just do kind of rough measurements in your head of the shape of his head, the length of his forehead with his hairline, which is extremely interesting because it's pretty much identical, where he has like a cowlick on the left side of his head in his mugshot, and he has the same cowlick in the older photograph. The spacing of his eyes, the expression
is what did it for me. I'm like, that's the same expression.
The way he pierces his lips in this thing, it's almost like, and then also the lines just below that go above his mouth and that separate his nose, and is identical. I mean, it's identical. And just the way he's positioning his head, if you look the way he's furrowing his chin, and one of the other things I find that I don't know whether or not, I mean, you can deep fake anything nowadays, but what I thought was really interesting is this looks like it's a photo of a photo.
Yes.
And you can see the distressed nature of the photograph across his forehead, that little white streak that looks like it was probably, just from aged, or it was like bent or something like that, bent back, and where the photographic paper had flaked off, like back then, not many people get to handle actual photographs anymore, because everyone does it digitally. And so, but, obviously this looks like it was not, it looked like it was taken on, maybe like a Kodak or something like that. It doesn't look like it was a Polaroid. So, but, when you have the paper after it's distressed a while and it breaks, it makes that appearance that, so to me, it looks, and Mike, when you did the guy who sent this to you through the email, did he indicate how this person who reached out, who's been reaching out to the family in that post, and we'll have to track down that post, and if he can send you that post, that would be great, how this person, the person in Brazil, obtained this photograph?
No, we don't have any specific information other than he's been that again, it's John Anglin that he identifies. This is John in the photo, and that he's been trying for years to reach the family, specifically Ken's brother, but unsuccessfully. And that's the only specific information we have. He doesn't say anything about how he knows John, if he's a family member, a friend, neighbor. We don't know at this point.
Okay. There was something mentioned in the email you sent us, and I don't know if this is correct or not, or maybe you've found out more about it, but because we all know that there was was it a John Deere or Caterpillar plant that was near that town where they were hiding out that, and I think you referenced that in the email you sent me. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, as you know, the person has, at least to me, seems like an uncommon Brazilian name. It's not, Juan, Hernandez kind of a name. We won't say it now because we're still investigating. But the name, I've never heard this name before. It was kind of said this way, or at least this frequency. And so we did a little bit of a search on Facebook to see if we can find somebody. And actually, I think it was Ken that found this gentleman, or a couple of places, a couple of Facebook sites. And one of them says specifically that he works for John Deere, which for most people, it's not a big deal. But the thing that makes that interesting is that when Fred Breezy made the recording for the family back in '92, he specifically mentions the John Deere factory was near where they lived, and that they had John Deere equipment on the farm. They had tractors and other such things. So it's another connection to the story that might possibly lend more information to, tracking down John and Clarence.
Yeah. What do you think, Ken?
Well, I will say that right after we did the History Channel documentary, we had people reaching out to us all the time. I mean,
me included,
including Mike. But I mean, when I say reaching out, we had a public Facebook page, each one of us, me and my brother, and we would have people send us, hey, I think this is your uncle, believe it or not. And some of them, like this lady in Washington, who kept hounding us every single week with information about where they live and photos, and we kept telling them this is not them. And so we had a lot of people that did reach out to us. I don't ever remember this individual, but I will say this: whenever I first found that photo of the original photo in 1970 that Fred Breezy gave us, as soon as I saw a comparison between that guy in the photo, who Fred said was John, and previous photos of John, I saw it right off the bat. I was like, holy, I just couldn't believe it. And so I had other people look at it, and, my mom, when she saw it, she was like, oh yes, that's my brother. And so over the years, like I said, people have sent photos, but when Mike sent that photo of this, I felt the exact same way. I looked at it and I said, oh my gosh, I can see that this looks exactly like John Anglin.
Yeah.
And so, I didn't want to be someone's, I want to see things sometimes. Showed it to my wife, and, she was like, oh yeah, I can see it. And you're right. There are certain things that I remember Michael Street talking about when he compared that 1970 photo, the eyebrows, the bone structure on the top of the temple, which is there in this photo. But then there was something else that I read in the FBI files, and I tried to see it in the 1970 photo, and I never could get close enough on John. John, according to the FBI files, had a scar on his right cheek. And I always tried to look at the photo, his last known photo in Alcatraz, his mugshot, and I have one in high definition, and I couldn't quite see it that way. But in this photo, if you zoom in on his left cheek, there is a scar, and it matches up to me the description that is in the FBI files that says he has a scar on his left cheek. And In this particular photograph, you're able to see it for some reason.
Is it just
is it just enough to actually see there is a scar there?
Is it just below the line on his face?
It is. It would be, according to what I believe the FBI, how the FBI files describe it, it would be in this area and in here. You know, if you're looking where I'm kind of like in this area,
yes,
right around the cheek area, and you can see what I think looks like a scar in that photo.
Independent of that, I mean, just the shape of the face, the shape of the nose, the mouth, just the expression, the chin, like the way he's dimpling and furrowing his chin in both photographs, and it's just the size of his eyes. It's like there. You go from top to bottom, his hairline to his forehead, to his eyebrows, to his eyes, to his nose, to his cheeks. Right. To the way his lips are, the lines around his mouth and the chin, and just the way he's tilting his head,
the expression,
almost exactly the same.
Yeah.
And I would imagine if we zoomed out, I have to look at another photograph of this mugshot, but I'm sure because on the mugshot his ears are cut off here, but I would imagine that the ears would probably match as well. And I'll have to look at that.
Yes, I have a lot of photos of John throughout the years in different prisons, Atlanta, whenever he was in Leavenworth, when he was in, the one up in New York. But I have a lot of different photos, and I don't want to say of all of the photos outside of that 1970 photo, this one is one that I would definitely investigate because being it was taken in Brazil. That leads, credence to it right off the bat.
So let's say he was like in his early 50s, maybe even mid 50s at this point. I'm trying to think. I'm horrible at math. What year would this photo you think have been taken?
Well, John was born in 1930.
Yeah. So be in the 80s.
Yeah. So if he was say 50, that would be 1980. So early 80s, and that.
Or older.
It looks like he's that old. It looks like he's late, like I said, around 50, maybe a little older.
Well, so the photo that was taken in Brazil that we had in 1970, that would have been roughly around maybe 10 years from the escape itself. Mm-hmm. And, you can look at that individual in that photo and he looks, okay, if you took John, how old he was when he escaped out of Alcatraz, added 10 years to it, yeah, that would pretty much come to what that person would look like. And I took that photo of just John and compared it with the photo that Mike just sent us yesterday. And oh my gosh, I was like, add another, 20 years.
20 years. Yeah. I was going to say the same thing.
That is that individual that's in that photo.
He looks older than in his 50s. Yes. He looks like he's in his 60s in this photo.
Well, and the other thing too that is nice about the photograph is when you have the 75 photo that Fred took, it's not the best photo. It's a little fuzzy. It was taken at a distance. It looks like it was about maybe 20 feet away, 15, 20 feet. And so a lot of the features are just not there. The resolution isn't there. It was just a cheap little camera that took the photograph.
Yeah, those cameras back then were just fixed focal lengths.
Right, exactly. And even within, as we've talked about numerous times, we have a 99% match to John with this poor quality photo. When you zoom in on that photo, you really lose resolution very quickly.
Yeah.
But the nice thing about this photo, it's a face shot. It's a headshot of John, and you have a lot of detail that you can really grab from that photograph because it's so close. The features are right there.
Well, I'm also wondering if this was like excised out of another photograph of where he was with someone else. Right. Because that's what it kind of looks like too. Because I don't know if it was set up like a headshot. It may have just been cropped that way, for this purposes and to crop out into maybe other people in it. But people don't just, unless the one on the left is his mugshot he was forced to take. This one, it looks like he had. I'm not sure if he was posing for someone or he was just caught in a photograph with a group of people and he just happened to be in a group shot or something like that. Because I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of questions I have about this photograph, but independent of that, it's really, really compelling. It's compelling to the point where it's like, unless someone create and you can tell when you zoom in on it, you know, you'd be able to tell if there was some artifacts in there to make it look like it was recreated. And to me, the thing that, like I said before, is that, you know, distressed part of the photograph across his left portion of his forehead really kind of negates all of that to me. And that's just from looking at it. Obviously, I'm not a photo recognition expert, but that's what it looks like, because you can see a little bit more on the, if you zoom in on it on the top there, and you know, we're looking at this now while we're watching it, and but it's super compelling. You know, we're hustling on trying to verify this photo. We have some people that are looking into this for us. So hopefully we can get, you know, verify the name. I know there's a lot of people with that name in that region. So, and who knows? I mean, if the person that posted this is still alive, you know, because this was
Right.
found in 2016, right? This was sent.
Right. That's what he said. 2016, he was searching for the family.
Yeah.
You know,
So-
why that
I've
year, we
always-
don't know. Well, you know, what prompted him to do it at that time,
Yeah.
we can't say.
I've
Maybe he
always said-
discovered it. Maybe he discovered it. You never know. He could have had a family member or something like that, or something. I mean, who knows?
Well,
I mean,
well, the thing that's also compelling to think about is A, he has the photograph, and B, he knows who it is. He identifies him as John Anglin. So how does he know that this picture is John Anglin? Is he a family member? Are they friends with the family? And he knows his real name, because we've often guessed that in Brazil, they used fake names to keep from being found. So he knows who he is. How does he have this information?
Mhm.
Which to me suggests that he's a family member of somewhere, to know that, because I don't think outside the family they would ever say who they really were.
Or someone close to the family.
Very, very trusted, close friends to the family where they
Yeah.
know the secret. But beyond that, you know, regular, you know, just sort of casual acquaintances, I would be very surprised if they knew who the family really was.
Yeah. And, you know, we said this earlier before we got on to the recording, but to our listeners, I mean, obviously this podcast goes out all over the world. If you do have, I mean, this is a very good lead. Anybody else who has kind of leads like this, I mean, please forward them to us. I mean, and another announcement we have to make again, it says to the families that we're looking for that may or may not be related to John and Clarence, there is nothing that's going to happen to you. You know, we have confirmed that with the authorities. We confirm that with that. This is just verification. This is like a archaeological experiment that we're doing here, just to try to prove that these two men made it down there, lived out their lives after the escape, that they made it off, and just to kind of verify a bunch of information. So nothing is, we've spoken to authorities about this. We've spoken to them on the podcast. We've spoken to them off the podcast. There's nothing legally that can happen to you by coming out. So, and I know that could be a concern. And so we just want to reiterate that to you. So if you're listening, or if someone forwards this to you, you know, we can be reached out to, but we're just trying to solve this mystery for Ken and Mike here. You know, Ken has a deep personal stake in this. This is his family's heritage, and, you know, and he's lived with these questions, and his family has lived with these questions all his life. And I think it's really important that, you know, we try to solve this. I mean, because it's one of the greatest true crime mysteries, you know, that's ever been.
And John and Clarence, two living sisters still alive. And, you know, both of them are very well up in age. My mom is 89, getting ready to turn 90. And her younger sister, you know, not in very good health. It would just blow them away to find out, you know, once and for all, where their brothers are at. And if one of them are still alive, to at least have a conversation with them before they pass away, and John, or whoever it is, passes away, and to even have the opportunity to meet their nieces and nephew, and, learn about what happened to John and Clarence while they were there, stories that the family will have, other photos. So, the authority said, like you said, Rod, they're not going to do anything to them. But, this is more of a family search now than it is really a law enforcement search. It's a family search. And that's where we really need people down in Brazil that happen to hear this. If you know something, reach out to our website, Alcatraz Escape. You can leave us messages. We'll respond back to you. Or they can reach out to Rob and Cindy off this podcast. And, we'll follow up on it. Promise you.
Yeah. And also we have, if you're nervous, reticent to do it on Facebook, we also have our website, Alcatraz Family Secrets, and we have, you can email us directly that way. So if you're concerned about other people seeing it, you can send it to us personally through our website, Alcatraz Family Secrets. We'll get the message and we will be happy to communicate with you.
Yeah. And they can reach out to us on our podcast webpage as well. There's varieties. Ken, I have a question for you. Did you send this photograph to your mom? Did you show it to her?
I have not yet. I've been kind of holding back a little bit. I am planning to show it to her.
Okay.
Just to see what her reaction is when I show it. Yes,
I
I will let you know what she says.
I mean, our friend who's a former U.S. Marshal looked at it and was like, "Oh my God."
Yeah. He's the one that's helping us with this
He's
case.
Like, are you kidding? Where did this come from? I'm like, I'm telling you, it looks just like him. It's crazy. Yeah. It's the expression for me. The way that
it probably was the same expression that I had on Art when we showed him that photo, the 1970 photo, down at the cemetery in Ruskin, Florida. When I showed it to him, that there's a lot of things that people, they refilm multiple times, and the facial expression is probably not the same as it was the original time that he looked at it. But I can tell you, we blew him away when he saw it. I believe it.
Yeah,
you could have.
Maybe you can show it to Art too. You can send it to Art.
No, I haven't showed this to Art either.
No, I'm saying maybe you could let him see it.
No, I could, but at this point, Art's pretty much. I'm very confused on where Art really stands.
Exactly.
Well, I was thinking when you show it to your mother, maybe you can record that moment, and we can play that little clip on the show in the future.
Yeah.
To get her honest reaction.
I will definitely see if I can record her
if she's willing to do that.
Yeah. Well, maybe wait, because we're coming down to see you in a few weeks, Ken.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're
maybe we can figure out how to do that. So for another piece of information. So why don't we transition to that? Because I think we just got to put a pin in this photograph for now until we get in front.
Well,
before I do want to do. I will send it to because I still talk to Michael Steele on Facebook and stuff like that. I would love to send it to him as well, and see what he thinks, and maybe we have him on here and he can help us analyze it as well.
Yeah, because I was thinking, before you show it to the mother, if we can get an analysis of it, and he can tell us, what is the likelihood of it being them? Because there's another photograph that Fred Breezy took of the woman who claimed to be, that he said was John's wife. I think her name is Maria, I believe. And we did have Michael Streed do a comparison of the modern day photo that we have of this woman we think is her and the one from the 70s. And unfortunately, her face, it's a profile shot. It's to the side, and the hair is covering a lot of her face. So there aren't a lot of data points. And he said there was just not enough to make a solid identification because of the way the photo was taken. But with this one, I'm there's pick which ones you want. They're all over the place. And I think he's going to come back with a very strong, positive match of this. There's a high probability that this is going to be John. And then we can share that information with the mother, with you there, then you're going to have a lot to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, if you took this photograph, because obviously everyone who's travels, we do, you have clear, which is like so you can bypass security lines, and they do facial recognition, stuff like that. And I'll most of the time when I'm going through the airport, I'll have a hat and my glasses on. I wear glasses like a baseball hat, and it zips it scans me and finds me very quickly. And this is such a clean. I guarantee you, if you put these two pictures up to clear under their facial recognition, he'd be able to get on a plane very quickly. It's like it would scan it and approve it very quickly. It is that close because you just sit here.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
And it is. I mean, if you do look at it, we have a box of old photos that we were just looking at the other day, and a lot of them have this little white thing because they've been bent. Because when you're handling real photos that are old, they do get these weird creases in them where it gets like a little white thing, and you can see it at the top of this photo that there's a little white, like.
And it could be also like sometimes when, because the photos, the actual photo side of the paper is kind of sticky. And then if you have it, packed with a bunch of other photographs, like in a Ziploc bag or something like that, after years, they kind of stick together.
Mm-hmm.
It almost looks like this one was probably stuck together and then was pulled away. It could have been that. And some of the elements of the photo paper kind of got pulled off. I mean, because that to me is the real kind of authenticity of this photograph, is the fact that, where it came from. Is that it has that degradation there, because it's not a clean looking photograph. And like I said, it could be part of a larger photograph where it was just zoomed in and cropped for that, just to do the photo comparison of his mugshot. So, but it is. I'm sorry, it's friggin' dead on.
Mm-hmm.
It's dead on, and it's going to be interesting to see if this thing plays out, because I don't know. It's crazy. And it's crazy. It just, it's happening now. It's
Right,
something that,
right.
And
Well, the energy's there.
It's crazy that this individual has been trying to reach out to us for such a long time. And, I can't explain why I don't ever remember someone with this photo coming to me before.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't ever remember my brother mentioning it. So either they just, it never made it through to us. Maybe they had the wrong email address. I'm not sure, but
I mean, it happens. We sometimes some people reach out to us on our website, and sometimes those emails, they get pushed into spam or whatever, and I'll find them and I'm like, oh my God, you reached out like 6 months ago. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Because I go through it all the time. So, you never know.
That is true.
It's spooky. It's a spooky photograph.
It is. It's uncanny.
Yeah. So getting back to what some of the other things that we're working on, we talked about this postcard that that you didn't even know it was a postcard for a long time.
No.
And it was just hanging in a frame at your mother's house, correct?
Yes.
Or in a frame at your mother's house?
It was at my mom's
story.
house. Yeah. So this is such a strange story. So my mom, back in 1973 in July, right before my grandmother died, she took me and my younger brother, David, down to spend a week with my grandmother. She was just, I don't know what inspired her to want to go, but she did. We didn't know she was going to die that Sunday. But we went down and spent the whole week with her. I remember going. And my father came down that Friday evening. We stayed the weekend, got up Sunday morning and drove to the house, drove back home, which was like a 6-hour drive for us. And we had gotten home. It was late Sunday. I had aunt and uncles that came over, and we were sitting around, or my mom and dad was with them drinking coffee. And she gets a call, and it was from Uncle Man. And he told her, hey, our mom just passed away in church. She was at church. It was at the end of the service. She went and sat in her chair or in the bench and had a massive heart attack and passed away.
Oh,
well, so, the next week we're down there for the funeral. And I guess it happened when she got back. She had a postcard that had been mailed from Canada and I think it was Windsor, Canada. And it was from, it was signed Ruth. And this is a kind of, I'll paraphrase, I don't have it with me right this second to read it all out, but it was like, so it's not just one person. We are having a great time in Canada, seeing a lot of things. I hope you are still at your mom's. Love, Ruth. Now, what was so odd was it was mailed the week right after my grandmother, like, actually it was mailed the same week we were down at my grandmother's. So she would not have known that, we would have been down there for the funeral. I don't know how Ruth knew we were down in Ruskin at my grandmother's house. But for the longest time, we thought, okay, Ruth must have been Helen's sister, because Helen had a sister named Ruth. It's the two paintings that John painted when he was in Alcatraz. One was of Helen, his love of his life, and then her sister Ruth. But when I asked my mom, and my mom took this postcard, and it actually has 2 stamps on it, which is very weird. But she took this postcard because on the other side of it is a picture. It's a hologram picture of Jesus knocking on the door, of this door. It, like, I guess, simulate knocking on the heart of, your heart. And so anyway, she always loved that photo of Jesus. So she put it into a picture frame, and it's been in that picture frame for at least, I don't know, 40 something years. And not too long ago, she decided, hey, I want to move this into another picture frame. Maybe it was getting old, I don't know. But when she took it out, she realized, oh my gosh, this was really a postcard. It wasn't a picture that she had. It was this postcard. And then she started remembering how she got it. And what we thought was so odd was I asked my mom, I said, well, she knew Helen. I was like, did you ever know her sister Ruth? She said, no, I never really knew her. And she only gets one postcard in her whole life from this lady named Ruth. I mean, she didn't get anything else. Remember, never got a letter, never got anything else. Just one postcard. And it was right before my grandmother died, and she knew she was down at my grandmother's house. So how in the world all this transpired, I don't know, but it was very strange. Now I'm not so sure that the Ruth that we thought that it came from is the Ruth. We actually, learned later on that John married someone down in Brazil. And we're really thinking that this is the Ruth that sent this postcard.
Yeah.
And so, because her name was Ruth, is what we believe.
We're
going to have, hopefully this postcard looked at, and
well, I
really
think,
see if there's something there.
Yeah. Well, I think it's unique. I mean, when you said there's 2 stamps on it, there's people put 2 stamps on letters and postcards all the time but what's unique about this is the one stamp, the Canadian stamp, is on top of another stamp. Right. And then the postage mark is from Canada, Windsor, Canada. Right. The postcard is from the US.
Correct.
So you have
and also, if you're in Canada, why are you going to send a picture of Jesus?
Yes, I mean,
it has a psalm on it on the back.
Yes. Now here's a really strange thing, and I've had cousins do research on their photos, but I swear, as a little kid, my grandmother had that same, not a postcard, but the same picture of Jesus knocking on the door. It wasn't in a hologram. It wasn't a hologram version of it, but I do remember that in their house. I could almost tell you where it was at. I used to sit beside my grandfather as he would sit there in his rocking chair and smoke his pipe and watch TV. It was very close to him. And so, I agree with you, Cindy. If this was Ruth and she was going to send something to my mother about Canada, it would be about Canada.
Right.
And undoubtedly there was a stamp already on the postcard And why would you need another stamp if it wasn't a Canadian stamp? So this also brings back a story that Uncle Man told that skip tracer that we had on several episodes ago. I have the detailed document that he did. And Uncle Man told him that he received a postcard, or the family. He didn't say he received it. Let me back that up. He said the family received a postcard from Brazil, and it was written in Clarence's signature. Now, he didn't say that there was writing on the postcard, so it could have come in a letter, but it's very strange. I asked my mom one time about that postcard, and she said that the postcard that I was holding in my hand from Ruth was that postcard. So even more strange stories around this particular postcard.
And also, I mean, John and Clarence were always talking in codes.
Yes, they were.
And just to clarify about the stamp, because you talk about two stamps, and usually when when somebody mails something and you need extra postage, you put a second or third stamp on it, and they're side by side. That's how you normally do it. This one, it's the stamp. One stamp is on top of another stamp, which is very peculiar. Why would you put a stamp on top of another stamp?
And the town,
maybe that stamp wasn't wasn't Canadian. And I'm really hoping when we have it looked at and we take off that first stamp, it will not surprise me. I would be joyed if it's a Brazilian stamp.
Right. Because also the town that they mailed it from is literally right over the border. It's a small little tiny town right over the border from America, from Detroit. So it's like, it's a weird place. Nobody would go there for vacation.
No, yeah, and then
back then they didn't, but now there's is like casinos there and stuff like that.
Yeah, but
before, not back then.
Well, if you wanted to mail my mom a postcard that had nothing to do with Canada, right? No picture of Canada. Why wouldn't? And I'm assuming they were just in Canada visiting, if that was who it was. Why wouldn't you mail it when you got back to the U.S.? You're just across the river or the little area into Detroit. Why did you feel like you needed to mail it in Canada?
No, I do have the postcard up so I can read it to you so you know exactly what it says.
Okay.
It says, "Hi, am having a great time seeing everything today. We are in Canada. Hope you are at your mother's. See you. Love, Ruth."
Right.
So
how would she know that? How would she know that she was at her mother's?
How would she know that my mom was at her mom's?
She wasn't in touch with them. It wasn't like
Clarence was with her.
Right.
Somebody was with her. And
because she says we are in Canada. She makes it a point to say we're in Canada.
Yep.
Because if you just mailed the postcard, the only clue you have you're in Canada is the when it was stamped by the post office. It has it says it's Ontario. And which is good because it also gives the date. It was in 1973 that it was mailed. But that postcard could have been from anywhere because, like Ken said, it was a religiously themed postcard. It had nothing to do with, because usually when you get a postcard, it's usually where you're at. If you're in London, you're going to send a London postcard with Big Ben or Parliament or something connecting you to that trip, right? Yeah. Oh, we're having a great time in London, kind of a thing. You're not going to go to London and send a religious postcard,
right?
That's printed in the United States.
Yeah. Well, one of the things about this postcard also, and why this postcard might have been very popular in Brazil, is Brazil is a very religious Catholic place. So having, I'm sure I almost can bet you that if you go down into Brazil, even today, you'll find a lot of postcards with that same theme to it. So I'm not so sure that was you would find that same thing in Canada. So I agree with you. Why in the world would you be walking around to, oh, here's a picture of Jesus. Let's send it to my mom, to Marie. And we happen to know that she's at her mom's because it even says, I hope you're still at your mom's. So, oh my gosh, and this is like right before my grandmother dies. And of course, we all have heard the story.
And what year was that? What year?
That was 1973, July. So my grandmother, I think, died July the 13th. Don't quote me correctly. But that postcard was mailed, I think, on the 9th of July.
Yeah.
So we would have still been at my grandmother's.
So it was mailed before she died, but arrived to you after she died.
Correct. And that's the reason why when she says, I hope you're still at your mother's. It's like, how would you know we're there? We lived in where she mailed the card to, which was Lee County, Georgia. Okay, that's where we lived at the time. It's 6 hours away from Ruskin, Florida, where we were at.
That's
So
crazy.
how did she even know we were there?
All right, so this is what we got to do. We got to do a seance and get Uncle Man on the line, because he's the one that knows, because he was the one that told them that you were going down to see them.
Had to
be.
He's the only one who knew we were there outside of the relatives that lived around my grandfather.
Well, and I have suspected, because like we said, this town in Canada is directly across the border from Detroit. There's just a river that separates them. So you cross the bridge and you're either in the US or Canada. Close. You're very, very quick trip. So why would they go all the way up to, well, first they're in Detroit and then they cross the border into Canada. My suspicion is they met Ruth and whoever she's with, because it says we met somebody from Ken's family up there, John or Clarence or both, to meet with them in a safe place, and provided this information that man was probably giving his brothers, they knew, and gave it to Ruth and whoever Ruth was with. That's been my suspicion, that it was a rendezvous to meet them. And when they mailed it, it was communicating to the family that it was because like Ken said, when he did the interview with the skip tracer, he said Clarence wrote him, but he couldn't find it according to
misplaced.
It was misplaced, and he kind of grinned when he said it was misplaced. So how did he know that Clarence wrote this when it says Ruth wrote it, unless Clarence was with him? That's what I think happened. I think they met with a brother or brothers in Canada for a quick trip, and then went back across to the United States.
Yeah.
And then she saves it in a in a picture.
Well, lucky for us, it's been preserved.
Oh yeah.
In a glass case for 40 something years.
Wow.
And so, the chances of DNA being up under either one of the stamps, because you got to remember, this was back when they didn't have adhesive stamps. The only way you could make that stamp stay is you had to lick.
Yeah.
So
everybody licked envelopes and stamps. It was disgusting.
It was disgusting.
So, we're really hoping that, I'm hoping that it's Clarence or John who licked that top one, but I'm also hoping that we find out that is a Brazilian stamp under that first one.
And we don't, obviously.
Oh my gosh, I don't know how much more you can prove.
I know.
Well, and one of the things that, as we've been talking to people, and even Art, because we've talked to Art, and we asked him point blank, with the 75 photo of John and Clarence with a 99% match, is that good enough for you? And he said, no, it's not. It's not enough evidence for me. And the thing that everybody wants, the final piece of evidence, short of producing them alive or we know where they're buried, is DNA. DNA is you say DNA and everyone is like, yes, that's the final proof that everyone will agree to. And that's what we're wanting to do. We're wanting to lift the stamps, take it to an investigator who can do analysis of the back of the stamps where they were both licked. And if we can show definitively it was John or Clarence, and the nice thing about the postcard is that it was postmarked from Canada in 1973. Whereas when Ken did the documentary with History Channel, and when Ken and his brother showed the Christmas cards to Art, the first thing he asked was, well, is it postmarked? And it's like, no, it wasn't postmarked. Like, well, then this is meaningless to me. I can't use it because there's no way to identify when these were sent or who sent them. Yeah. But we have a mark from the post office date, and if we have the DNA of John or Clarence, it's case closed. We've proven the case. This is the smoking gun that we're hoping that it is.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, someone licked that stamp or stamps.
Mhm.
And so someone's DNA, and we've been consulting with a lot of experts, and they're pretty sure they can get something off that. So that's what we're working on currently. And hopefully we'll have answers in the next few months. So that's really crazy. It's crazy that
it is just this whole story of Alcatraz just gets stranger and stranger every time we uncover something. But what is amazing is that everything we uncover, what Mike and I have uncovered, what we've uncovered with you and Cindy, it all points to the same conclusion.
Yeah.
That all three men, or at least John and Clarence, got off that island and made it down to Brazil and lived their life out with family. So
yeah.
I don't know how else you could come to any conclusion off of these.
No, and to me, it's like I always lean on logic, and to me, it's like everything that you guys put together in that book, and the breadcrumb trails, the Mickey Cohen stuff and everything, it's all logical. It's all, it doesn't, I mean, it's and it all connects together. It's like the way you guys presented in your book, everything connects together. Like the relationship with Fred Breezy, the whole thing. It's like it's all there. It doesn't seem like if you were to write it as a screenplay or a story and come up with it, you wouldn't be shocked to think that this is how it happened.
Right.
So it's not like stranger than fiction. It's fact. It just seems like it all connects together, and I just don't. And the only thing that is muddling this information is the government's reportage and investigation of it. That's the only thing that threw the monkey wrench into it.
Right.
Because logical people standing from the 10,000-foot view can see it very clearly. When you just, like I said before, and I've said it over and over again, if this was in a court of law, this isn't even circumstantial evidence. This is like evidence. And people have been tried and convicted based upon only circumstantial evidence. So it's like,
and the thing that I brought up before is, as you talk about the evidence, is it always goes back to the story that we keep telling. It's not like we have some outlier of evidence of, they landed in Scotland and there's eyewitness accounts of them in Scotland in 1963. We have nothing like that at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Fred Breezy said they got out on the boat. Robert Checky sees them on the boat. In the FBI report, it says that they were going to get a boat. I mean, you have this information of people that are not communicating with each other, don't know each other, and they're saying the same thing. Or when we went to Montero Lobato, there were 3 Americans hiding in the mountains.
Yeah.
In the in the late 60s, early 70s. And when we go up there and investigate, we find the penny. And we find the gun casing, and we find the lighter that, it's not definitively John and Clarence, but it points to them. It says this is something that would connect to them, not away from them. So, and this happens again and again and again. And now we have the postcard that, again, it points to them, not away from them.
And then we have a photograph that was sent by someone in Brazil.
Yep.
So it's like, it's crazy. Anyway. Yeah. Crazy. We're going to get to the bottom of it. Like I said before, listeners, viewers who are watching this, if you have information, please send it to us, either to Ken and Mike on their Alcatraz Facebook page or website that they have, and also for Partners in True Crime website. You can send us information there. And we're still in the hunt. We're still in the hunt. All right, guys. We'll see you next week.
Okay.
All right.